Well, another day of the Paris Olympics are behind us now. India is yet to add a third medal to its tally. But all in all, a very exciting day for India and Indian athletes. And to recap everything that has happened and also to take a look at what's going to happen tomorrow, we have with us Mihir Vasavda, who's taken a small window from his very, very hectic day to talk to us. We also have Vinayakk Mohanarangan, as always, joining us from Delhi. But before I go to Vinayakk, I think we should bring in Mihir. Mihir, you watched, I think, 2 table tennis matches yesterday. We are transversing time zones, and you watched Manika, lose the match. And in a sense, she kind of had like an unraveling of sorts. Can you just talk about that match and the experience of watching that?
Watching Manika today was quite an experience because, I have always seen her as a big fighter whenever she's competed. And today it was everything opposite of that. And it was quite sad in a way to be watching it because her emotions were quite telling throughout the match. उसने जब पहली serve थी, she hit it into the net. And she smiled thoda sa wryly, she shrugged, and then that smile never appeared. Like whenever it did, it was in a very sarcastic, wry way, where she was just like thinking, yaar, main ye kya kar rahi hu? And she was just looking at Aman Balgu, who was sitting in the stands. Her personal coach, Aman Balgu, was sitting in the stands. In her line of vision, she would look very helplessly at Massimo Constantini. In her corner, she would slap her thigh, she would just smash the ball on the floor, throw her racket. Her emotions were all over the place, and later on she admitted that she was actually trying way too hard to win and didn't kind of stick to her game plan. I think वो एक बड़ा सा difference हो गया वहाँ पर with Manika. The other thing which Constantini told her while she was, playing is that she wasn't completing her shots. She was just too nervous while she was playing, and the shots weren't the confident hits that Manika produces. They weren't powerful, they weren't free-flowing. That was a big difference. So I guess, it was a momentous occasion. The first time any Indian player was trying to reach the quarterfinals of an Olympics. So that in itself is a big achievement. It was uncharted territory. And I think that occasion got to Manika. She said that she'll maybe sulk for a day, sulk today, feel bad for herself, and tomorrow she'll look forward to the team event where India have 3 really good players.
Right. And obviously, not just Manika, even Shrija was making history today because both of them were playing in the round of 16, and no Indian table tennis player has ever competed in the round of 16 at an Olympic Games. And this is the first time that Shrija and Manika, both of them have broken through. Both of them eventually ended up tasting defeat. I think, obviously, you spoke about Manika, but Shrija also had a kind of a heartbreak, even though, like, if you looked at the form and if you looked at the ranking, you would have expected her not to have too many chances because she was playing against the world number 1. But she did give a good measure of herself, but then eventually I guess she couldn't convert those chances that she had. You want to talk about that a little bit?
So I'm just leaving the stadium having watched Shrija playing her round of 16 match, and I must say that at one point in the first game and then again in the second game, she had completely got the crowd on her side. I think excellent, very brave performance that she came up with. Chinese was aggressive from the word go, and Shrija matched her stroke for stroke. But I think वहीं पर class में फर्क दिख जाता है, right? When you have 5 game points against a world number 1, you have to kill that. If not in the first game, you do it in the second game, having brought yourself in that position and with such मुश्किल है to reach that level. You're 9-4 up, 9-5 up in the second game. You're 10-5 up in the first game. Broadly that was the scoreline if I remember correctly. But yeah, you have to kill that thing, and you could see her body language just deflate, ऐसे हवा balloon में से हवा निकल जाती है वैसे. In the second game, when I think a 9-4 say when it became 9-6 or something and the timeout was called, at that point you could actually see her body just like give up. उसका जो भी energy था, जो भी fighting spirit था, it was all gone. And that point, like, it was fairly obvious that it's all over and there's no coming back from there. So sad ending, but a great campaign, and I think it gives us some hope for the team event.
All right. Well, thank you for that. Mihir, before we let you go, you've written a fascinating piece in the Indian Express today where you've written about how the Paris Olympians are kind of losing sleep because if the opening ceremony was all about excessive rains, right now with Paris is all about excessive heat. There are food lines, not enough food enough available for the athletes at the games village. There have been thefts happening. Like there are also transport issues. I think one of the boxers basically told you that traveling to from one venue to another felt like a journey to hell or something like that. Mir, do you want to talk about that maybe?
Guys, the village actually is quite a thing right now. There's so many things wrong that I don't even know where to start. But I guess it's best to start with the most serious of the offenses, which is the alleged robberies that have taken place. So apparently this Japanese rugby sevens player, he was out. When he returned to his room, he had his wedding ring and a necklace which was apparently stolen, along with some cash. So total value of the goods that was stolen from him was around 3,000 euros or something. Then an Australian hockey coach filed a police complaint. Japanese players too had filed a police complaint, and so did the Australian coach after his card was stolen. And he got a message, a call from his bank about a suspicious transaction worth of 1,500 Australian dollars. So that's happening. Then on one hand you have buses which are running extremely late, which is forced, some teams, including South Korea, to just leave the village and stay at a hotel close by to their venue. India have tried to kind of come up with a solution for it, where they've got a line of cars on standby. What they do is basically कि अगर जो Friday का जो भी schedule रहेगा, for example Indian athletes का on Thursday night, they'll make a chart. They'll keep cars assigned for every athlete. The athlete won't be informed necessarily about it, but in case, say for example, Sindhu calls up them and says that my bus hasn't arrived, what do I do? They'll already have a car assigned for Sindhu and the car will be there in a minute. So she'll be there at the venue on time. But this isn't how Olympics generally works. We've heard that buses lose their way and there are other issues, accidents and stuff. Wo bhi hua hai. But buses not reaching in time is a problem. And then when the buses are reaching on time, it's so hot here and the buses don't have AC. The windows don't open. So it's practically like a sauna inside. And that's a problem which I spoke to one of the boxers. She pointed out too that her ride from the village to the boxing arena she felt like a journey to hell. And it was cooler outside than in the bus. So that's another issue. Food has been a constant problem. There's been a lot of rationing. नहीं मिल रहा सबको जो खाना जितना चाहिए उतना. Sometimes it's just empty. Everything. These guys are supposed to prepare some 40,000 meals a day, but they're clearly not able to meet the requirements. And Tanisha Crasto said before the games that she was hoping to get Rajma, which was on the menu, but by the time she reached the counter, it was over and they never replenished it. And it's not just Indian food. Something as basic as eggs, as grilled meat, that also isn't available. So food is another big issue, and Indian contingent has advised the athletes not to order in. Someone like an Amit was ordering in food from a restaurant close by. They said कि हमें food quality पता नहीं है कहाँ से आ रहा है कैसे बन रहा है, so might as well just stick to what's there in the village. And a country like Great Britain, they've flown down their own chef at an emergency services kind of a situation overnight, and they're making their own stuff there.
Right. Me, thank you so much for joining us. I know you are really squeezing out time to talk to us, so we are going to have to let you go. Vinayakk, I think it's been a very strange sort of Olympics because, I mean, the perception that we have is when first world country kind of hosts an Olympics, everything is perfect. Like, accommodation is pick and span, transport issues are sorted, everything like works like clockwork. But it's not always so. Like, I think at the start of these Olympics, we saw some of these very funny stories coming in where I think one of the skateboarders' bus kind of rammed into something and they were a few, I think, 100 meters away or something from the skateboarding arena. So these guys just decided to roll up on their wheels to the venue. We also saw a couple of these robbery stories as well that we spoke about, where I think Australian team's van was broken into all of their equipment, including the massage table, was just taken into some park and dumped into the park. And they were kind of like picking up everything from the garbage and then putting it back and taking it back, because when you're at the Olympics, that's all you can do. In the piece, if you guys want to read, Mihir has written about some great anecdotes or some great details about how the Indian Olympic Association is kind of going out of its way to help out the athletes, the Indian athletes, to kind of circumvent these logistical issues. But all of that behind us, Vinayak, another exciting day. Today, I think the sporting lexicon of India has probably found a new phrase, a Rajinikanth shot. I don't know if that's the phrase that everybody is going with, or it's just the commentators that I heard.
Yeah, that was one way to put it. I mean, because it was on the Indian feed, so I'm pretty sure it was only the Indians who heard it, not the world feed. So we are good that way. See, honestly, just the first thing is it's not exactly a new thing in badminton. So, I mean, if you have watched badminton, you know that these shots are quite common. But the most impressive aspect of that shot for me was the rally was, first of all, it was at point number 19 where, Lakshya won that point, because after you play that behind the back shot, it usually ends up being a kill from the other side. The rarer aspect of that point was that Lakshya eventually ended up winning the rally.
Yeah.
So that was incredible. And the fact that it set him up game points, and then to, take the lead against a player of Jonathan Christie's quality. Essentially, Lakshya won the match today because he took the lead in the first game. So importance of that cannot be underestimated. So that shot, in essence, that's why it was so important. So yeah, Rajinikanth shot is probably a cool name that will get popular in India. And we'll have to thank Lakshya for that.
Yeah, and I think it was one of those matches where Lakshya just showed kind of everything. He was diving around. He was playing all these reflexive shots where he would almost turn on a dime and then retrieve the shot from a very low angle. And that was, I think, in the middle of a 50-shot rally. So he kind of gave a glimpse of where he's at. On the other end of the spectrum, the guy he's going to face in the next round is compatriot HS Pranoy, who was, I'm not sure, I think he was kind of still coming to terms. I think he had chikungunya a few weeks before the Olympics, and he seemed to be still maybe carrying the effects of that a little bit.
So from what I've heard, if you have chikungunya once, you're going to probably carry the effects of it for a very long time.
Yeah.
I've heard that from multiple people. So that's kind of, your joint pains and all that, it's going to kind of stay with you is what I've heard. Even from our editor, Sandeep Dwivedi sir, the other day, we were discussing about that and he said the same thing. So, I mean, credit to Pranoy for turning it around. Before we go into Pranoy, just one more thing on Lakshya.
Yeah.
I think the very interesting aspect about Lakshya's win for me was at the toss. You never actually end up discussing the toss during any aspect of a badminton match. But when Lakshya won the toss, so basically when you win the toss in the badminton match, you can do three things, right? You can either choose side, or you either choose to serve, or you choose to receive. And Lakshya chose to receive. Yeah. That actually surprised quite a few people because there has been a clear favorable side at the courts. One side is faster, one side is slower. We won't get into the technicalities of it. But everyone thought that Lakshya is probably going to choose the easier side to start from so that he can get the lead, right? But he made Jonathan Christie take that call. He didn't take that call for himself. And I thought that was very interesting at that time. And eventually you figured out that he was basically trying to tell Jonathan that, I know this court better than you because I played one more match. I'm familiar with the conditions and I don't mind starting from the tougher side if you choose that. I'm letting you make that call. I'm comfortable with either, right? So that was basically what he was telling. And to go 2-8 down and then come back and win that opening game, I think, that's probably from 2-8 down till the end of the match. That's probably some of the best badminton I've seen Lakshya play in all the years that I've seen him play. The diving, the one aspect that you mentioned of how quick he dives and then gets back up, that's one of the things that is his signature moves, so to speak. His defense is terrific and his ability to get back up is next to very few others in the game. So that was really good. And so Pranoy, I'm a little worried about the fact that he lost a game against the Vietnamese. I hope he's physically okay, but he did recover well enough in the second and third games. And tomorrow today we'll have Lakshya Sen versus HS Pranoy in the round of 16. A lot of people are a little disappointed about that two Indians are playing so early in the knockout rounds. But on the flip side, it does guarantee at least one quarterfinalist from India. So if you want to look at the glass half full aspect of it, so that's there.
And Vinayak, the funnier thing was in the build-up to the Olympics, Shivani and I were interviewing Lakshya, and I think Shivani asked him that, these diving shots that you hit, can you just talk about that? And he was like, yeah, my coaches have been telling me to stop doing it because eventually age catches up with you. Matlab, starting mein theek hai, you can jump around, you can throw yourself around and all of that. But eventually, matlab, as you grow up, तुमको समझ में आता है यार joint pain क्या होता है. So I think the Olympics might be when he decides to retire the dives in a sense. But yeah, moving on. Sindhu also was in action today. A good result from her, but then the next round is going to be very, very tricky, right?
Yeah, I mean, she was always expected to win this group easily. There was not really any doubt there.
Yeah.
My only issue was with such an easy draw, I feel like Sindhu is a little untested going into the knockouts. The moment I saw the draw, that was the first thing that came into my mind. I thought maybe a slightly difficult, trickier opponent could have been handy just to get her going. But I mean, that's nitpicking. It's the draw. You can't do anything about it. So next she's facing He Bingjiao from China. She is the person, the left-handed shuttler, who Sindhu beat in Tokyo for her bronze medal famously, bouncing back from that semi-final defeat to defeat He Bingjiao, and she won the bronze. So she has a little bit of history there. He Bingjiao actually has the better head-to-head record against Sindhu. Sindhu has a tendency to struggle against left-handers, as we have written about in the past. The lefty game sort of bothers her, especially when they do the drops and, draw her forward. The angles are a little tricky for her. So that is a little bit of a concern. But for anyone listening to this podcast, if you are looking for hope, Sindhu has never lost a game against a Chinese shuttler at any of the World Championships or Olympic Games she's played so far. That is a total of 9 matches where she's been unbeaten against Chinese shuttlers. So if you're looking for a good omen, so there is one. She's looking fit, so that's one good thing. He Bingjiao is going to be tough. Let's see how that goes. If she can keep the streak going, that'll be something.
Right. I think we are running out of time. But
Satvik Chirag, before we close?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so we got the men's doubles draw today.
Yeah. So we had a men's doubles draw and once again a very tough draw.
Yeah, so I think at this point, so when you're talking about the last 8, top 8 in the world in men's doubles, I think we discussed this in the preview podcast as well, right, Amit? Men's doubles is one of the widest open categories in badminton, and it's going to be really difficult whatever they get. They did get probably the tougher end of what could have been possible. They're playing the Malaysians Aranchia and So Woo-yik in the quarterfinals, and then they're in the same half as Liang Weikeng and Wang Chang, the top seeds from China. So if they do win the quarterfinals tomorrow, they have to play the top seeds in the semis. So could have been easier, but yeah. And both these pairs have a better head-to-head than Satvik Chirag in their previous matches. But on their day, I would still expect it to be close contest, if not Satvik Chirag as favourites. So at least for tomorrow in the quarterfinals. So let's see how that goes. So that kind of the badminton, huge day coming up for badminton on Thursday, where all these names that we mentioned and the matches that we mentioned are going to take place. Essentially deciding how many of these guys go through will basically decide what's our badminton medal tally is going to be. So a huge day coming up. Absolutely.
Before we end, Vinayakk, do you want to also talk about what else to look forward to? Because way too much is happening tomorrow. There is Nikhat, there is Swapnil Kosale in the 50-meter 3P final. Anything else that you recommend our listeners should definitely check out tomorrow?
The list of definitely checking out events tomorrow is pretty big, actually. All the badminton matches that we mentioned.
No, sorry. But Vinayakk, your list is obviously going to be very, very big.
No, but...
Bullet points mein bolo, yaar.
Bullet points, yeah. Bullet points is... You already mentioned Nikhat Zareen. So she's taking on Wu Yu of China. Another world champion, but in a different category. So it's a battle of world champions. So huge match in the women's 50 kg category. Yeah, I mean, we've all spoken about Nikhat Zareen as a medal contender. She has to win tomorrow. So let's see how she goes. Then all the 3 badminton matches. Then there's, of course, India versus Belgium in hockey. Both India and Belgium have actually already qualified for the quarterfinal. So it kind of, the jeopardy is not quite there, but you still want to finish high as possible. And it's probably the biggest test yet for Harmanpreet's side, who have not looked very comfortable. So let's see how that goes. So that's definitely one to watch out for. Archery action is there. Of course, there is boxing that we already discussed. It's Nikhat. Athletics is actually starting tomorrow. Track and field first day. There's a race walk. So that is one to keep an eye on as well. So yeah, the schedule is already obviously up on our website. So do check it out. But I think we've broadly covered the big ticket events.
Well, we have. So that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to us day after day. And I think you probably have all of our handles on Twitter. So in case you want us to specifically talk about something, you can always tweet to us, tag us. Please don't abuse us because, but ठीक है यार, कर लो अगर तुमको करना है तो. But yeah, on that very liberal note, I bid adieu. We shall be back once again with Pod of the Rings tomorrow on what could be one of the most defining days for Indian sport at Paris 2024. Till then, goodbye. Thank you so much for listening. From my side, from Vinayakk's side, from Mir's side in Paris, see you.
You were listening to Express Sports by the Indian Express. This week's show was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar and produced by me, Shashank Bhargava. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it. Share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Podcasts and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.